Here we go on episode 66 of the Trash Talk Business Podcast, where we come together weekly to talk about your junk removal dreams. As always, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Casey Bubba Lawrence. Casey, what are we going to talk about today?
Man, today we have a great guest, a special guest. He's actually also repping the DFW. His name is Donnie Boivin. And great, honestly, he's a great veteran advocate for the group that I'm a part of, and he's a veteran himself, obviously. He is a Marine. We won't hold him to that too much, but we do have to talk a little slower, and we will put the subtitles on just for him.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
He can't read. Marines reading subtitles. We'll put, if anything, it's the reverse subtitles. We have to put subtitles so the audience understands the jargon. Is that accurate?
It can't be subtitles. It's got to be like little images, GIFs, bright colors,
pictures,
lots of pictures, paint by numbers
with crayons.
Yes.
All right. So let's. So I know Donnie. Casey knows Donnie. Donnie, our listeners, well, they don't know Donnie yet. So we could do this thing where we did research and, give this great introduction or read a bio or ask for a fucking bio.
You're fucking veteran, like I think.
Or we could be like, hey, stand in front of the information, introduce yourself. And that's what you're going to do.
Cool. Nickel tour.
Yeah, nickel and dime tour. Nothing fancy.
20 years after the Marine Corps, nothing but straight commission sales, turned 40, got tired of making everybody else wealthy. Jumped out, launched a business, didn't know what the fuck I was doing. 6 months into launching my business, almost lost everything. Jeep was repossessed. Wife and I both had to cash in 401ks to save the company. Found podcasting, turned the companies around. Freaking now, I'm the CEO of 3 companies, have one of the top podcasts in the world, 5 best-selling books, and a partridge in a pear tree. There's your nickel tour.
Fucking nailed it. All right, well, there we go. So if you're wondering why you should pay attention, well, that's why. 5 best-selling books, 3 podcasts, one being, what do you say, top? Which
one podcast?
Or one podcast. Sorry, 3 businesses.
Companies, yeah.
What is the podcast? What's the premise behind the podcast? Let's talk about that. Let's a little cross-promote on the podcasting right away.
So it's called Growth Mode. You can go out there and find my mugshot on the front of it. But it's 100%. I bring in experts on the show in different fields and industries and have them coach me about growing and scaling my business. So I bring in just some radical freaking badasses that are been there, done that, or are doing it. And I grill the shit out of them and get a ton of free coaching live on the air while people get to listen to them teach me all the things about business. So having a lot of damn fun. Everything from business finance to operations, everything to level up the business.
I like it. And then 3 companies. Let's touch on those right away.
So we have Success Champions, which is a peer group. We bring small service-based business owners together and help them scale and grow their businesses through, keep making sure they don't become an island. So there's a lot of introductions. We don't talk referrals because broke people look for referrals. Real people understand the power of introductions. And referrals should come from your clients anyways, not your network. So then the second one, we have Champions Table, where we take small business owners and we teach them how to scale their businesses by giving them all the systems, operations, and the likes. And it's really a deep dive into their companies. And then we have the Badass Business Summit, which is an annual summit we do here in the DFW marketplace, bring 150 CEOs in, some phenomenal speakers that stay the entire time. It's 100% focused on them growing their businesses through collaboration and the network, because networking's half the battle in that type of arena.
Oh, yeah. I would say, so let's talk about that. So I'm a huge proponent for networking. I have one of my companies that I run is for network here in Southeast Wisconsin. Casey's involved with his veterans. What is it? Veteran meet? What is the, is there an official name?
Veterans in Business?
Veterans in Business.
Well, it's called Veteran Circles Network, Business Network.
We lost your audio.
Yeah, your audio, Casey, your audio is all jacked up. Whatever you press, whatever you did, screwed up your audio. See, there we are. Now we have to do a commercial break because Casey's audio is jacked up. We're going to sponsor Meat Church. Meat Church down there in Texas. If you like church or you like meat, Meat Church, unofficial sponsor. Basically, whatever hat Casey wears is our unofficial sponsor.
Sweet. I'm with Casey. I'm going to start sending Casey hats in.
There you go. Right. we can talk about. Yeah, we
I
can talk
haven't had
about
them
that.
eat church food, but their videos are pretty rad. I mean, they look like they know what the hell they're doing.
They have videos.
Yeah, they
All
got
right,
a whole TikTok channel, and
I know nothing other than Casey wears the hat. I will say though, right off the bat, Jobber. Maybe Donnie, you taught me this. I don't know, or I picked up along the way that if you get compensated any way, shape, or form by a company, and you talk about them on a podcast, you have to mention to people that they compensate you.
yes, that's true.
Yes.
It's a paid opportunity, but you can 100% talk about anybody you want
Is that
to.
better?
Yes.
Yeah,
You found it back.
Okay.
So I have I have show notes, and by that I mean I know your name. And then beyond that, I don't really, have notes. I do know that I always want to mention that we will mention Jobber at some point in this podcast. I love Jobber. And one thing you said, Donnie, was systems and processes. A lot of companies go out there, they can do the thing. And then they start doing the thing. And then you ask them, well, why are you successful? And they're like, I don't know. And then you're like, I'm going to scale and have employees. It's like, well, cool. How is it you can put, processes in place so that your employees can deliver the same level of service-based businesses, as you delivered, and they don't have a system or process. So Jobber, it is a CRM, it's an operation software, it's a scheduler, it's a truck router. It does all the things, and it was the first third-party system that I paid money for and put in our business outside of shit we normally do. So there you go, Jobber. If I mention it and you sign up and you use a code for me, I get a little kickback, which helps me talk about more things junk removal. Because the goal here with the podcast in some capacity is that we're going to continue to educate fellow operators in the small business home service community, so we can continue to grow and elevate our businesses. Because we know the fly-by-nighters are only that. Easy in, easy out.
Yeah.
And when the economy, or as the economy struggles, the people that have the right info are going to be the ones still standing. And so that's why we do the podcast. This podcast has no other agenda other than information sharing. So
yeah,
there's my soapbox.
Yeah. And that's the one thing that is, it's actually helped us kind of get more listeners. I mean, people hit up Andy all the time. Hey, I got a question about my business. The one thing we like to do is say, hey, what are your data like? What's your data look like? Not just financials, but what do your numbers in general look like? Are you tracking anything? We had an episode, our last episode, we talked a lot about just marketing, sticking to the basics, and tracking your own data for your business, and I think that's something that a lot of small business, especially when they first start out, it's hard to cover every base at the same time, especially when you feel like you're the only one that can do it. So they just kind of create that bad habit of not doing.
I think a lot of people will tell you stupid things like, well, I'm a referral only business. We only bill by referrals, You're like, okay, cool. What's it take to get a referral? Well, I go to these events and I do this and I talk to people and eventually somebody drops my name. Well, there's a hell of a lot more to getting referrals than showing up to events and everything else. There's actually, if you can't look at all the activities you're doing and put an ROI to it, then why the fuck are you doing it in the first place? And that's why I think a lot of people give networking in general a bad rap, because they don't know if it actually works for their business because they haven't actually put the numbers to it. And look, I can tell you, if it's not measured, it's not a process, it's not a system, it's not scalable.
It's a happening, right? It is like when one thing happens, it's a thing, right? When two things happen, it's a coincidence. When three things happen, it's a trend. And you don't know if it's a trend unless you track the first two things. And once you have three things that are all similar, you're like, oh, this looks like a thing that could cluster together and get measured. And that's the challenge, is people early, and myself included, I didn't track it. I was like, oh, I made like $400 today. I got paid $500. I paid $100 in wages and I kept $400. I'm like, oh, it was a good day. I couldn't tell you anything else about that job. And I did that for years.
My problem was I was making great money doing sales for other people. And now all these, sales manager and everything else are like, you got to track this. And I said, I'm the number one sales rep. If I ever fall below that line, come tell me I need to track my shit. Otherwise, just get out of my way and let me go sell. Right.
Yep.
And, that works great when you're working for somebody else, but now you're out on your own and, it's really hard to tell somebody else to, one, work at the level you work at, two, hold them to expectations that you don't know what the expectations are because you've damn near just been gunslinging your entire life. So it really made me unwind the clock and understand why all these people asked me all those years to do stats and tracking and the likes, not always just for me, it's for the company as a whole, so they can duplicate the system and processes.
So you said something that I find very interesting, and I was absolutely of the same perspective. I did sales 15, 17 years ago for Black & Decker and DeWalt. In my first year, I was top 10 salespeople in the company, right? And I just went in and worked, and I worked and banged out the thing and stood in the aisle and sold power tools and understood the process, or understood this. I understood the power tools. And I knew how to talk to people. I did not have a system or a process. And so when people are like, well, why are you successful? I'm like, I don't know. I just, right. So I go to the big convention in Arizona and I look like I kind of look like an idiot because I'm like, I don't know. I just go stand in the aisle. And so part of it is like, okay, you got natural talent and ability. You know, when you apply a process to natural talent and ability, you will have exponential growth. And I didn't know that as a 21-year-old, you know, working for Black & Decker. I was like, I'm here doing a good job, right? There was other people that didn't even show up to work or did a piss poor job when they were there. So I'm like, well, that's the standard. The standard is not piss poor. And when I got to the top 10%, I couldn't repeat it. The challenge is once you are out on your own, you are the number one salesperson and the employee of the month every month.
And even if you're negative, right? Even if you're not making any money,
right? And now, but what it is like you were number one in your company, or I was top 10, or whatever, because there was a metric, there was people I was competing against, there was a process, there was an expectation. When you start your own company, you're like, I'm in business. I tell people all the time, it does not take much skill to be a business owner. 135 hours, you get an LLC, you are in business.
Yeah.
And now what?
And that's the thing. It's more internal, I think, than anything, right? I mean, I tell people all the time, it sounds great until you do it, and then you start having to reevaluate things. There's a lot of people out there that make that jump, and then they realize, shit, maybe this isn't for me. I can't relate with that. You know, I think we've all been in situations where we've probably been offered great jobs, and we both, you know, all of us are probably like, you know what, just, man, it sounds great, it sounds enticing, but no thanks. And I always go back to, like, hell, when I left the junk removal business, I was offered a sweet gig, you know, nice truck, everything, and had to have a talk with my wife on why I wanted to say no. But before I did, I talked to mentors around me, told them the information at hand, saying, hey, this is what I got offered, and I want to know what you think first. And what's funny is, like, my dad told me the positives of working for a bigger company. And then my stepdad told me the same thing. I was like, shit, this isn't going my way. And no one's telling me to do it. But I knew that my number one thing I wanted was freedom to move, right? To move around, freedom to fail on my own and it all be on me, freedom to succeed due to my efforts and not say, hey, I did my best for someone else. And you know, I don't.
There's a ton of value in understanding who you're getting advice from.
Right.
You know, because I mean, same situation. I was offered this huge vice president of sales for massive freaking manufacturing company, and they were offering me twice what I'd ever been paid at a freaking job, and it was almost 7 figures for this.
Same here. I've never been
money, and you know, and if I talk to my family's like, well, hell yeah, you take that role. But I talked to all my entrepreneur buddies that had done things, and they're like, why the hell would you take that role?
Yeah.
You know,
mindsets are different.
Yeah, totally. You know,
yeah, and that's the thing is, I got offered it. You know, the pay alone, just like you said, it was more than I've ever made. It's more money than I ever took home. So for me, it was like, holy shit. But something just didn't fit right with me. You know, giving away so much of my own time for someone else, and knowing I can be replaced at the drop of a hat. And you know, now the cool thing is, I'm here doing my second podcast of the day on a Monday. Tomorrow I have a meeting at 8 a.m. on the 4th of July because I chose to, right? Like, yeah, it's a holiday, but it's funny. I notice when you're an entrepreneur, your hours, they're not set in stone, but they are set. So it may be a holiday, but guess what? You're probably still going to be doing some text messages or emails or something.
I forget most holidays unless my wife tells me.
Exactly.
She's like, you know, especially we're going over to your mom and dad's to do barbecue and swimming and everything else. And I'm like, for what? She goes, it's 4th of July. I'm like, oh, shit. Right.
Oh.
All right. Let me
I forgot it was
move a few
Father's
things
Day.
around. Yeah.
You know, my wife was like, "Hey, it's Father's Day," and I was like, "Oh shit, it really is. Tomorrow's Father's Day. Wow, okay." And it's just because I guess you get tunnel vision, but for the most part, I think it's not tunnel vision as much as it is you get so focused on what you're building that, like the norm. Holidays, obviously, if you work for someone else, you're going to know your days off. You're going to look for those days off. Hey, these are my days off. Sweet. I can plan around those.
Yep.
So it's a little
Well,
different. And I think the
and
mindset's different.
for sure. And I think people look at that sometimes and like, oh, that's the hustle and grind. And no, there's a lot to be said that I really enjoy what the fuck I do.
Me
Right?
too.
I mean, I'm in pajama bottoms right here and right now, and every day I can sit right here, run 3 companies, do my podcast, get interviewed on shows in pajama bottoms, and choose, how long I want to work, right? And it's not for me. It's not the hustle and grind. It's to do the work until the damn work's done. Do the things you need to do.
You enjoy doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people miss that. They don't understand what it means to truly enjoy what you do, to the fact you can get lost in it.
And I would also add in there that, all of this has gone through the shit show of building a business. As Andy said, anybody can do it. Doesn't mean you can actually make it successful. But anybody who's running a successful business, in the words of like Gary Vee, have eaten a lot of shit along the way to make that business successful. So I mean, when you put that much energy, time, and everything into building something, of course you're going to work hard on it. Of course you're going to think about it. That's why I hate the whole idea of work-life balance. I think it's the stupidest fucking phrase in the world. Only people who want work-life balance are people that work for others and hate what they do. Right?
Ooh, yeah. You're gonna be hot and bothered over here. Casey knows I hate that word because so I'm gonna touch on 2 things. Shameless plug of my book, Words Fucking Matter. My favorite 4-letter word is work, because work has this negative connotation. And when you're working on your own dream and your own goals, it feels like work, and work in a good way. It's like work at the gym. You put the work in, you feel good afterwards because you got the dopamine, you got the endorphins, you're putting in work to yourself versus, that old adage, like the guy pulls up in a Lamborghini and the intern's like, oh, that's a really nice car. Like, and the boss is like, yeah, you work really hard this year. I'm going to buy another one next year. Right? Like it's completely different mindset. And then the second thing, what you just talked, like, I use the word work-life alignment. Like, I have my daughter half the summer. My daughter has an office in our building. She loves coming here because there's things for her to do here. She likes sorting stuff. She likes talking to the guys. She likes hopping in the trucks. The other day, what was it? Monday, Tuesday? To your point, schedule went to shit. Started to rain. We needed to take a truck up to the landfill. It was a dump truck. So I took her up to the landfill. Let me tell you how much she didn't enjoy that. That truck's air conditioning went out. And she said, Daddy, rolled the windows. I said, it's going to get real hot in here when I go out there to untarp the load and dump it. And she goes, I don't care. I'd rather be hot and die than smell the landfill, because it was a particularly juicy day. It was that sweet landfill smell because it was humid that day, right? And it's like, and also, as we're at the landfill, I'm like, hey, this is where we take asbestos, or not we, but like this is where they dump the asbestos. This is where the small trucks go. This is where the big trucks go. I'm explaining everything like play by play because that's interesting to me. Some people will be like, I can't believe you took your daughter to the landfill. I'm like, well, it was alignment. We had to go to my house. I needed the truck because I was putting some of my own stuff in the back from my job, my house remodel. And I'm like, no, it's alignment. I get to spend quality time with my daughter doing something I enjoy doing. Now, did I want to go up to the landfill on a 95-degree day when it's raining? No, that wasn't on the list that day, right? I checked my calendar. It wasn't on my calendar. And yet you do what you got to do to make that truck available to our guys and get other projects done. And I wrote that down. I had Donnie on my other podcast last week, 2 weeks ago, on the Welcome Home podcast. And here, I wrote this down. It says, do the damn work until the damn work is done. And it's like, well, there you go. Well, and when you do that, the hustle, the struggle, the grind is your own, and it's a beautiful thing.
I agree. You keep saying alignment. I've always liked work-life integration because I think it's all one thing, right? And I can tell you, my wife is probably one of my greatest assets and business advisors because she's my fucking Jiminy Cricket. And if I get stacked up against a decision and I'm like, is this the right move? I know that I better have my shit together when I ask her, because if it's not, And it's not that I do anything in unethical or anything, but there's sometimes that I make a call and I don't think about the other person, right? And so I'll run shit by her, and she's like, and I know if I don't have my freaking ducks in a row when I ask her, and she has nothing about the business. She doesn't even fully understand what my companies do, but she understands people. And dude, when you can ask questions of your spouse or your significant other, whatever in this day and age, you can, and they're like, cool, think about this, and they're challenging your thought process, then your dinner conversations become everything. Your companies, your business, life, vacations, family, the whole 9 yards. It is all one integrated conversation. There's no separation from church and state at that point.
I think also having that third, here's how I look at it. You have emotional decisions and you have business decisions. And a lot of times business owners, it's going to happen. You're going to make decisions based on emotions, whether it's you really like something or someone or a company, you really want to work with them. So you'll maybe think of taking a hit in one way or another to get that partnership. But you need that non-biased, that third party come in and say, hey, look, does it make sense? If it makes sense, do it. If it doesn't make sense, I don't care how much you love that vehicle. If you love that Ferrari and you can't afford it, don't get it. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It goes back to it kind of in general. I think a lot of people are moving through life living somebody else's dream. They don't actually know what they want, so they launched a business because they knew they didn't want to work for somebody else, and thought oftentimes what most people think is they can do it better on their own terms. So they go get a truck, they go get a website, they go get an LLC, and now they got a business. And now they're finally stacked up against it for the first time in life because, look, I'll be honest, building a business is not an easy endeavor. And at some point, you're going to find out the fuck you're made of because you're out there busting your ass and, payroll's due or something else. And freaking there's not enough paycheck left in a month to make everything happen. And you're like, well, I can't not pay these people. So figure it the fuck out. And a lot of people, when they get to that pressure, they're like, oh, I don't like the man in the mirror. So they pivot, shut down the business, go a whole different direction. And that's what I think one of the most beautiful things about building a business is as a whole is those who actually make something of it. They go through it and come out the other end. And when they get to the other end, they go, ooh, look, another fucking mountain to climb. Let's do this and go another round.
It's almost like you're reading my book, Donnie. If you read the book, words fucking matter. Right?
Well, mine came out first,
Hey, please plug your book from fuck to focus.
Right. So I think Andy saw my book out there and he was like, look, he used fucking the title. I'm going to do the same damn thing. So,
the only difference, and I have no problem saying this and talking a little shit because that's what we do in the military. I spelled it right. There was no asterisk needed. If you're going to write, if I'm going to write the word fuck, I'm going to write the word fuck.
Mad props, dude, because I did the research like when is Casey coming out with his book? I fucking love that. No pressure, Casey. But I like you did, I'm sure. I did my research on the damn thing, and it's the biggest book in the world. Unfuck yourself. He put the asterisk in. I'm like, dude, there's a reason. And which I found out later. My book is still unpromotable. You still can't run ads and shit on it. So I should have just fucking not put the asterisks in it.
I think if I come out with a book, it's just gonna be titled "Fuck."
Fuck.
That's probably the one word I say most. No matter what, it's like fuck. How many times is this gonna get said today? But I'll tell you, it's funny because I had a demolition company very briefly after I left junk removal, right? And I was faced with a decision. I started at a really tough time and I started for the wrong reasons. I got out of junk removal because I wanted to be home more. I wanted to enjoy family more. And I had that opportunity to do so. But then I started demolition thinking I could have that same lifestyle that I was wanting. And I could apply it to this brand new business that's going to take everything out of me. And I was wrong. But I was looking at a decision. Do I take out this huge loan? Right. And at the time, borrowing money was cheap, but still, I take this big loan out to get some equipment and really push forward, knowing I'm going to have to get back in the groove of spending 100 hours a week on this business, or do I just shut it down before I get too far away over my head? And it was big for me. It was a huge pride issue at first, but then my wife and I talked about it, and we looked what's best for us, what's best for what we wanted, really, right? Like if we want this kind of lifestyle, how do we get there? Well, it didn't fit in the mix. So I closed it down. I closed down that demolition company, and I just pretty much diverted all my jobs to one of my subs that was actually doing really good for himself and just needed some more business. So I made a good deal with him. And I looked at it as a very good learning lesson because I was responsible enough to know when to stop, where a lot of us don't know when to do that. I could have kept going, and I could have got that loan. I could have got a $350,000 loan, could have got some equipment, you name it. But then I would have been right back where I started, and I would have been unhappy, and eventually probably would have failed instead of stopped. So, just knowing when to stop, knowing when to say no, or knowing when to understand the direction you're going may not be the right direction for you and your goals.
Well, and I think you make a great point, because I think oftentimes, I hate the whole idea of you got to have a why and all that bullshit along the way. I think you got to have a vision of, what the hell you're trying to create.
What do you want? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think oftentimes people are building shit that they don't actually know what they want out of life, and people end up building a really shitty job for themselves versus building a company, because they're building a business that requires them to be a slave to the business versus building a business around the lifestyle they actually want to live. Like,
so is a better way. So Simon Sinek, start with why, which a huge fan of Simon Sinek, and I don't want to debate that. I guess when you focus on what you love, then you get the alignment, right? If you love the time with your family. So Casey, for example, when you love the time with your family, right, then you're going to go that direction. If you love high stress, then you go another direction. Like I when you love the grind, build a company around it. If your goal is to go to Florida and drink margaritas, what's that?
I think I performed very well at a high level when I was mostly stressed out, but I
100%.
also understood that I was fighting towards the goal of being home more and having my money work for me rather than the latter, right?
I think more people convince themselves that high stress makes them perform better, only because they're doing the 2-minute football drill, right?
Yep.
And when you do the 2-minute football drill all your life, that's when you get used to it, and you think you have to have that to actually be successful. Versus going, what is the level of work I got to put in? What are the things that I actually have to accomplish? What then do I have to get off my fucking plate and give to somebody else to do so I can live the life I live without having to have that high stress to up my performance game? Because you don't need a 2-minute drill to be successful in business. You got to understand what your job and function of a business actually is, and then put the resources in to get the shit off your plate that forces you into that freaking grind state of, I've got to be stressed out, things dropping, things exploding, whatever, to be successful. You've got to, I'm just a huge believer that, you should be documenting your day going, all right, what the fuck am I doing today of this shit? What is actually moving my business forward? And what shit should I give to somebody else versus me trying to do it all because I think I have to be the one that touches it.
And at the end of the day, I kicked my camera. Now Taylor's got to come in here to fix it. My leg's too long. At the end of the day, so you got to begin with what do you love and what is your goal? If your goal, right, like Casey was, he had a billboard, he was going the full demo route. And then one day he's like, hey, man, I'm not doing this. And I was like, what? He goes, no, my goal is to spend time with my kids. And I was like, all right, like shape. And it's like, and I remember he called me. He's like, what do you think? I was like, that's a really good decision. And he's like, all right, me too. And that was it, right? Because on the same token, our last episode I talked about this. I got 3 different franchisees, local franchise operators right now. All 3 of them are like, yeah, I'm going to be done by the end of the summer. Like, I'm going to stop paying my royalties. I'm going to ride it out, or I'm going to get another phone number and start my own company. And it's like, well, what the fuck are you going to do for 3 months? Right? Like, and I talk about there's only 4 basic algebraic equations, right? Addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And 4 is too many. 3 is my favorite number, so we're going to break it down to less than 3. When something works, you multiply it. Don't go add a new shit. Multiply what is working. If you have one customer that's awesome, where are 10 more like him or her? Yeah. Also, when shit's not working, subtract it. Like if you're running Google ads and you spend $1,000 and it doesn't work, $500 ain't going to do it. I see that guy all the time. Oh, I'm gonna dial this back. I'm gonna do a little bit less of it. Well, it's like, well, if it's not working, stop doing it entirely and have the pride to say like, okay, hey, this isn't working and I'm comfortable with it. Have the be proud. I guess let's say don't have so much pride wrapped up in your business. Have pride in yourself. And I've closed a few businesses. I've closed a few on top. I've closed a few not on top. Right, I cashed out like you said, I cashed out my 401k in April of 2019 to make payroll.
Yep.
Right, that was a life lesson, and there's a guy right now who owes me a bunch of money here in Milwaukee because his company's going under, and now that they're peeling back the books, he made a lot of prideful decisions that were unethical at the least, and maybe illegal and immoral. Right, so it's like, dude, at least have the fucking pride to pay your bills and or tell people when you're ass over tea kettle. And you got to have the numbers to know that you're ass over tea kettle, right? Ignorance only takes you so far before it becomes malicious.
And the pride thing for me lasted 2-3 months max. Like after that, I was 100% over it, and I knew I'd made the right decision. There was no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, anybody that usually reaches out to me because they're stressed the fuck out, they're not sure what they should do in the business. 100% of the time, it's because they're building the wrong business. It's because, let's be honest, usually if we get into the thick of things, we can figure out the next move, right? Or we'll find a mentor, somebody that's going to point us in the right direction. But most of the chaos is usually caused by they started something that was a hobby. They now turned it into a business, or they heard of a business idea. They bought a franchise, whatever else. And now that's the path they go. That's why I'm just not a big fan of, follow your passion and turn that passion into a business. No. I'm the guy that says, let's get passionate about what the fuck you're doing and then see what happens from that. And it just flips the entire script for me. I got a brand new puppy you're going to likely hear in the background.
Was that?
I never knew my passion until I got into business.
Right. No, I just saying I got a new puppy in the background. So if you hear her, so. But that was me too.
Dude, I have a 1-year-old living in his mind in the background.
I mean, I honestly didn't know what the hell I wanted to be when I grew up. The only thing I knew is I didn't want to work for other people anymore. Right. So when I launched the business, that was the goal, was to not have to go back to work for somebody else. And, it's one thing to work years for somebody else, and then another when you get out on your own and realize, shit, my entire life has been a series of people telling me what to do. Now nobody's out here telling me what to do. What the fuck am I supposed to do?
40 years from school to Marine Corps to corporate America. Now you have to start. I talked about this on the other podcast, the veteran podcast. You got guys that are coming out at 40 years old that only know grade school, high school, and the military. They're 40 years old and can't have a conversation of original thought because it hasn't been necessary for 40 years. And now you look at their resume and you're like, oh, this guy's going to be awesome. You hire them and then you're like, hey, I need you to make a decision. They're like, I can execute a decision, make decision. Now, and then you go into business ownership and you're like, day one, I got my business. And then you like your business card and you sit there. It's like Michael Scott when he started the Michael Scott Paper Company. And he made pancakes, right? He's like, what are we doing today? He's like, I don't know. Because all he ever knew was paper and paper sales. And they had a playbook and they ran the playbook and you adjusted as needed. When you have to write the playbook, you don't know what to do.
With the guys I serve with, they're all the guys that were in charge of me, the E5s that were when I wasn't an E5, the E6s. Now they're all first sergeants and some of them went officers. And they're looking at retirement in the next year. And they're scared. They are like, what the hell am I going to do? And I tell them all the same thing. I say, well, here's the good thing. The good thing is financially you're stable. As in when you get out, you have retirement. I was like, but what you need to do is put a plan together of what you want to do and don't rush into anything. Society tells you that when you're a vet and you get out of the military, you have to get a job. You don't have to get a job. You just need to keep moving forward. As a vet, I believe we get in trouble when we stop. When we stop moving is when we get hurt. That's when we hurt ourselves and others, right?
I'll add to that, man. I think the greatest thing we can learn is exactly what we don't want to do.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much power in trying a whole bunch of different shit until something fucking clicks. But most people, because they don't know any better, first thing that comes their way, which was my problem for 20 fucking years, was every time somebody said, "Hey, I got a job for you," and thinking about, do I want to do that job or is this for me? I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And then I got really good at that freaking job until I got miserable. And then I had about a 7-year span of each one of the jobs that I had. And it all came down to, I just kept taking what the fuck was in front of me versus going, what the fuck do I actually want to be? Let's go try a bunch of stuff and figure out what I don't want to do, so I figure out what I actually want to do.
Your math equation was backwards. You decided based on what was available instead of deciding, you know what I mean? Instead of figuring out what's available to you and then go finding the work. And a lot of us are that way. Like when I was in grade school or high school, or even grade school, at the end of by the time I was in 8th grade, I had a job. It's like, well, what places can I walk to? And so I worked at a country club, and then I worked at a gas station because I could walk to them. And then it was, hey, where do I know somebody? So I worked at a pizza place. Eventually, you got to say, okay, what do I want to do out of life? If there's no parameters, right? I can decide what the parameters are. What do I really want? And when you do that, you can start figuring out, like you said, what I loved, right? Stop, start, continue methodology of change. Start with what you don't want to do or you're not sure. And then go do it for a while. So like junk removal, I tell people, I talk about it almost every episode. If you're not sure if you want to do junk removal, go do 100 jobs. After 100, tell me if you still love it. If you don't love it after 100 jobs, probably not for you. Because 1,000 or 10,000 jobs isn't going to make it any better. If you still love it after 100, or you don't make it to 100. And then you can say, hey, that was good. Like I had a resale shop for years. I knew I didn't like resale shop from the beginning. I didn't enjoy it. And I ran it. We ran the play. We ran it with all the different ways. In person, online. We had auctions, live auctions in our fucking warehouse. Then we did a resale shop. Every which way you did it, I didn't enjoy it. Now, every time someone's like, oh, you should really have a resale shop and sell this stuff you get out of the house, I'm like, no, I'm good. I get paid to pick it up. I get paid to recycle it. I will donate everything else. I don't care if Habitat and Humanity makes money off of me. That's fine. Like they do resale. Let them do resale. Let the guy at the church take the furniture. Like, yeah, I go sell that furniture for $200 or I give it to a family in need and the family's happy. Like I don't get satisfaction out of doing something that feels like a job, job.
Well, and that's kind of my point is, a lot of people, especially even if I hadn't gone the military route, it still would have just took whatever was in front of me type of ordeal. And 100% because I did not know what that thing was. But I also know I wasn't willing to go explore a whole bunch of shit. I wanted the stability of a paycheck or whatever else. So there wasn't a whole lot of let's go try things. And I think, half the battle in life is fucking finding these experiences. And if you, long as you're experiencing with shit, you're going to figure out some cool things.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Well said.
So I love this joke. Like it takes a lot of work to not have a fucking job. I haven't had a job in 7 years, and I'm fucking proud of it. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
well,
like you laugh right away because it's like,
so your lady friend,
is different.
Your lady friend and my wife both hated the fact that we said we're unemployed.
Oh, I checked. Yeah,
it's like.
It's the truth, though.
It's true, right? Like, I joked for years. I talk about this in my book a little bit, right? I'm unemployable, I'm unemployable, uncoachable, and unmanageable. And one of those things is no longer true. I am now coachable. I'm still unmanageable, and I am unemployable, and I am proud of that. And every day I wake up, I have to also pay bills while being unemployable. Let me tell you something. That's a lot of work. Right? I go get me a 6-figure job, job. Maybe I last a week. At most.
Dude.
Like
I tell everybody I'm ruined. I'm ruined from ever working for somebody else because I know what it takes to run a business now, and somebody else going to try and employ me. I'm like, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Why don't I just take the fuck over, right?
Now at 11:15 on Saturday night when the president of our company is calling me because that's how good of a day we had on Saturday. 11:15, we're leaving a job site. I'm like, okay, what do we need to do, right? And all day on yesterday on Sunday, I thought about it. And there's probably 10 times I went to reach for my phone and call him. I was like, nope, it's Sunday. We will hash it out Monday morning. Right. I slept like shit for 2 nights, not knowing the resolution to this project and what we need to do, what shit show I'm going to walk into on Monday morning. And I just sit with that all weekend. And then this morning was like, okay, this is what we need to do to remedy the situation. Other people, when they leave at 5 o'clock, they are done. They're thinking about softball and fucking Buffalo Wild Wings, whatever bullshit people with jobs think about after work. Not me. It is 24/7. I'm on the clock.
Yeah.
I will say this. I learned this, quite a bit ago. I think really when I really dove in deep to business ownership, when I knew for a fact that that's all I wanted to do forever, I realized it is very lonely at the top. It is a lonely, I guess, state of I don't know what you would call it, I guess industry or lifestyle, because it's hard to make friends that share the same kind of thought process as you. Especially when you're like Donnie said, it's almost the same, but like you could be around a group of people that, hey, they have all good jobs, but the conversation is so dull and flat.
Oh my God.
And you're just like, y'all are dumbasses. Like, this is not my style. Like, I'm out.
It's not. I don't go the full dumbass. It's not as interesting to me.
It's
because
not. It's not.
They're and also it's like, wow, you sound like my employees. I don't care if you're making $20,000 a year or $200,000 a year. Yeah. When you are of the employee, you have the same stresses, the same problems. And then business owners, I'm in a CEO roundtable where I'm one of the lower ones, right, in the tier. And there's a couple of the businesses that are 50 million plus. We had a guy that's $200 million plus. The challenges he has as a leader of an organization, pretty much the same. Yep. Carry the zero, right? Move the one over every now and then, and that's it. And so it's not that I don't say it's not interesting. It's boring. I'm not going to say it's bullshit because everyone has their own stress. It's not interesting. I was at Costco earlier today buying fruit snacks, and I'm watching the employees there. I'm like, some days I'm like, wow, air conditioning. Scan the card, say hi to people. Every 2 minutes, a new person. And I'm like, how long would I last at this job?
I want to be a Walmart greeter. That's it. I just want to be a Walmart greeter. I just want to sit and wave at people all day. I wouldn't even make it an afternoon.
I just want to check their receipts like I'm actually looking at them.
Right.
But about 2 years ago, so I'm still in the Army Reserves, and I love doing a lot of stuff I do in the Army. However, 2 years ago, I was put at a guard shack, which for any military members means you sit there and you ID people when they come in. And I'm military police, so I did it by the book at a reserve station, which people did not like. But they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, hey, if I'm doing this job, I'm doing it per the standard. So when the battalion commander showed up, right? Oh my God, 100%. Hey, it was cold and miserable. It's like, hey, if it's gonna suck for me, it's gonna suck for you. So I stood there, waved him through with proper fucking hand and arm signals, the whole 9 yards. And the battalion commander, when I asked for his ID, he's like, "Excuse me." I was like, "He's like, you know who I am." I was like, "I don't have facial recognition. You're not, I just like did the bit." Now the next day I waved him through because he'd been on the base for the previous day, recognition, right? And it's like that job there. Most people would have just sat in their fucking truck and be like, yep, wave, yep, I know you, yep, no. I'm like, if I'm going to fucking sit in this misery, so for 4 hours I did it, I was over it after about 15 minutes. Because every time I would get a really good video on YouTube, and then I have to pause it, and then I had to give up, and then I had to move. There are some people, like when I go to the VA, the guy who sits in the shack there, I guarantee you for 8 hours watches fucking Netflix and just waves at people randomly. And he is happy. He's making $40,000 a year, happy.
Well, but that's the difference of it. Two things here. One, the reasons he's happy is because he's content with that life, right? He's content with that income.
And God bless him for that. Absolutely.
Yes, 100%. I love people when they can find contentment. It's the assholes who are like me that was constantly like, ooh, there's something better. There's something more. I've got to do something more with my life. And dude, I find myself in a mundane job. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? You know, you have to pick a path. I mean, that was the choice for me when I turned 40 of, do I go start my own business or do I, stay working for somebody else? I said, you can't do both. You either fucking chase the dream or you get okay with the life you're living. And I think for most people, they're not okay with the life they're living. They're still trying to chase that dream, but they're not actually trying to chase it. They're fucking trying to hack their con or whatever their way through life, and it just never works that way.
Yep.
So pretty much chase the dream or get complacent.
Content. I'll go with content.
Well, it goes from, here's the deal. It goes from comfortable to content to complacent, and complacency kills. Right now, there's also some people that have that job 40 hours a week, and then they come home and their wife and their kids and their dog and their yard and their fucking barbecuing and whatever, or their fucking outdoor activities, this snowboarding or bike riding, whatever. Like, that's their thing. Like, they work, right? They're truly working for the weekends. I never understood the working for the weekends mentality. I want to enjoy every minute of every day, not sacrifice 40 hours of my week so that I can have a couple hours on a weekend to do what I want to do. And for some people,
right there.
they want that safety and stability. And you can't have it both. When I see people that get in the junk removal game, they're like, well, I don't want to work weekends. I'm like, cool. You don't want to be in junk removal that bad.
No.
Because this industry is a 7-day-a-week industry.
Yeah. And we stayed closed on Sundays. That was just us. Hey, all my guys had 2 days off. We didn't work Sundays, but I'm telling you right now, there were times where we thought, should we open up on Sundays? But the math didn't work out. Whatever problems we were facing, that one day fixed it. So to me, it was like, well, it's all about how you build your business around, your schedule and stuff like that. But, going back to what you said, Andy, about those people that get home after work and they have their routine working for the weekends. There's a reason why I cannot stand landscaping. I hate yard work. I see people outside and they're nose deep in their garden throughout the hot Texas sun. I'm just like, that just looks terrible. And I'm over here looking at mine and it's like, well, there's weeds everywhere. So I call up a landscape company like, hey, how much you going to charge? Like $200, I'll clean out your whole flower bed and mow. And I'm like, done. Because I don't want to do it. I don't want to spend the time that I have outside miserable picking weeds. And I think a lot of it's childhood trauma because when I would get in trouble, I had to pick weeds. So maybe that's it too.
Well, for me, I had a house cleaner for years, and now I've been living in a warehouse the last 6 months. I had a house cleaner for a couple of years, and I'm like, okay, what is my time worth for peace of mind and frustration? It was like $150 a week. She came by, did everything, and I was like, okay, what do I need to do to make an extra $150 a week? And that's a serious question, right? You're talking $7,500 on the year, right? Like, what do I need to do to justify this? And it's like, all right, this is what I have to do. And it was an XYZ, and I put more work in. So if I spend another 2 hours a week on my business, am I worth $75 an hour in my business? Absolutely. Like, how many more deals do I have to close? Not that many, but I have to close more to not have to do dishes. And then when I also was a reward, when I came home, she came on Tuesdays. When I came home on Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday night, after playing volleyball, and I had fresh sheets, fresh towels, and no dishes in the sink, let me tell you something. Whatever doubt I had about myself working, I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go Wednesday. How do I go get some more of this? Because that's the alignment I wanted in my life. I want to come and go. I want to dedicate myself to my daughter and my craft, not my fucking yard, not my goddamn dishes. Like, I don't mess with that stuff because it doesn't bring me satisfaction. And there's nothing wrong with the people that want it.
Well, you just summed up what business owners really screw up is they're keep doing the things that actually suck in their business. Now, look, you're going to do some things that suck. You're going to do accounting. You're going to do things that suck. But
first of all, I love accounting. Hold on. First of all, it's July 3rd. I did my end of quarter this morning at 7:45. So don't say accounting sucks.
Accounting sucks, right? So it's really simple. Right, but I mean, at the end of the day, there's certain shit that you have to do. But a lot of the things people are doing, they should, like your freaking housekeeper, find what it costs to get that shit off your plate. Like, the greatest asset in my company is Kevin, who does all my automation stuff. I get a harebrained idea. I go, Kevin, this is what I want to do. His job is to figure out how to make that shit work, and it fucking works. And, if I spent the time to figure out how to do the automation, how to do the email sequences and landing pages, all that stupid shit, then I'm spending a lot of time working on shit that I shouldn't be working on. And then it becomes miserable. You got to look at your business and go, what the fuck can I get off my plate? And there's always a way to get shit off your plate. Sometimes it just costs a little bit more elbow grease than other options.
Well, we had a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a couple months ago. We've done a lot of podcasts now. It's starting to blend a little bit. The lesson learned was Travis Johnson, a random Navy vet. We picked up on the side of the road in Las Vegas one time. Really big podcast. Yeah, yellow sunglasses. I'll give him credit till the day I die about this thing. What he talks about, when things have to come off your plate, you have three options: delegate, automate, eliminate. And now I've combined that with something else I learned from Chris Kalenda, who was a coach of mine, who talked about a will versus skill gap. So there's some things we don't want to do because we don't have the skill and we suck at it. And it's, and there's other things that are will and we're good at it. And yet it's a brain suck. And so this is what I've now deduced. When you have a will gap, so for example, I can answer the phones really well. My skill set, I am on par or better than anybody that's ever worked at this company answering the phones. However, it's not stimulating enough. So that's something I can delegate. I can teach someone, I can coach them, and then also I can have them coach the next person. Donnie, you and I talked about this a little bit ago, right? It's what's that methodology you call it? I wrote it down. Oh, here. Oh, action, document, delegate. I have it right here.
Yep,
Same sheet of paper.
Yep. That's it.
ADD, right? Which is great for ADD, right? So that's the kind of stuff you delegate. Stuff that you know well enough from an action standpoint where you can then have the second person document it and the third person delegate because you can check it. Automate. That is where, hey, there's a system, a tool, or a process in place so that you don't have to do it. This is like going back to my jobber. I remember pre-jobber, I had to enter customers' information 5 times. I had to put it in the calendar. I had to put it in my phone. I had to put it in QuickBooks. I had to write it down for the guys. And I'm trying to think, and I write down the 5th time for our marketing, for keeping track of marketing shit, right? So I automated it, put it in one time, hit the sync button, we're good. And then finally delegate for me or eliminate for me is the stuff that I don't even know what the standard is. So marketing is not a strength of mine. I have eliminated marketing from my purview from a tactical perspective. It is pure strategy. I sit down with a marketing company. I tell them the goals and objectives, and I have a final say on things. I'm not like, well, you sure that right word in the copy is perfect for that one Facebook post? When people hit me up, they're like, oh, hey, I saw your Facebook post today. I'm like, I don't know what it is. I don't look at it because it's mind-numbing to me. Because I have a company that I've eliminated from my purview. I know when the phone rings, it's time to party. I know when I sit down monthly with my KPI reports what initiatives are and are not working. That's the level. I need a 60,000-foot view when it comes to marketing because it's not that interesting. The challenge is people feel like they have to do it themselves. They feel like their time is not worth anything. I have said it, and I will say it again. Your time as a business owner and operator, your time is the most valuable asset to the organization. Are you in the flow doing things that are challenging enough at your skill level where you are maximizing your opportunity? Are you doing things that you suck at? Are you doing things that are mind-numbing? If you say to yourself, I can do this with my eyes closed, that means you can train somebody else to do it. Is there stuff 100%. That you are terrible at, that you feel like you have to do, and that you avoid, and you spend more time avoiding it, right, and letting it wear on you? If that's the case, get someone else to do it. Don't feel bad about yourself. You're not great at everything. And then another thing, while I'm on my soapbox, let me finish last point here. The other thing you got to do is stop sometimes, going back to what Donnie said, and figure out what it is you want. Mm-hmm. If more time with your family is the key, then make that the priority because then it's worth it. Otherwise, you get burnt out someday.
Yeah, and I think the biggest misconception in owning your own business is thinking no one can do it as well as you. I think most of us get to that point, well, I don't want to grow because who can do it as good as I can? And the hard answer to hear is a lot of freaking people. I mean, there's a lot of people that can do things as good, if not better than you. You just have to train them, and you want them to do better than you. They're afraid to grow out of their position.
Yep. No, that's the key is you need to be hiring people that are better than you. You need to hire people that geek out on this shit you suck at. You need to bring these people in and you need to Henry Ford this damn thing and be the dumbest guy in the damn room. And I still love the analogy that was in Napoleon Hill's book. And Henry Ford talked about, how did a guy without a degree in education build one of the biggest corporations on the planet? And he pointed at his freaking phone on his desk. He goes, I push this button and I get the VP of finance. I get an operational question. I push this button. I get the VP of operations. I got, whatever problem, I hit a button and my expert comes into that. And you should build your business with that thought process in mind is who are those people that are smarter than you that can do the things you don't want to be a part of? Like my team starts giving me all the how the marketing shit works and all that. I'm like, I don't care. Show me the ROI.
There you go. Exactly. It's not that I don't care about you. I don't care about marketing. Yes. I don't have enough fucks to give in this particular. I know what matters in the ROI. And show me the baby. I I don't conceived it. Yep. What that's all we got. Actually, it reminds. So yesterday, show me the baby. So I live pretty close to our landfill because that's where I live in Wisconsin. Anyhow, one of our landfills. anyways, I was driving yesterday, and I saw this truck, and I recognize the truck. It's a guy I went to high school with. He has a business where he hauls roll-off dumpsters. It was Saturday or Sunday. It was yesterday. It was Sunday afternoon, and he's driving his one rig. I remember I got together with him like 4 or 5 years ago to sit about possibly collaboration business. And he said exactly what you said. No one else can run as hard as I can. I don't trust other people with my equipment. I know my business inside and out. And there we are on a Sunday afternoon. I'm taking a quasi-leisurely drive, and he's hauling his truck. And you know what? If that's his version of success, awesome. Next time I get with him, though, I don't want to hear about where you didn't grow.
Right.
Because you're only one person.
Well, but that's also a guy who created a job and not a company.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's what happened all the time. I saw that all the time when Casey and I were both in the franchise world. It's like you bought yourself a job.
Yes.
Now you have all the risk and responsibility. Like, how stupid is that? And it was somebody else's dream. Somebody else's name is on the side of the truck.
Let's be honest, anybody who's selling franchises is in the game of selling franchises. They don't give a shit if you're successful. They want to sell franchises.
As soon as you're not successful, they will sell it to somebody else. Yes. Right? The only difference, difference between that and the old adage, right? That hey, when you die, they'll say, they'll hire somebody to fill your seat before you even, before your funeral. The difference is with franchises, they'll sell your territory. They won't even buy it. They won't even pay someone else. They will sell your asset before you're even gone. And I know that when I got out of the franchise world, they sold my territory. It was sold before I finalized my paperwork, basically, because they're like, oh, fuck you, Andy. We can find someone else to do it. Not better, not worse, somebody else, because that's how replaceable you are. And it was true. When I was in the franchise system, I was extremely replaceable. And I know that I'm not a replaceable kind of person.
On my way out, the president of the company called me and tried to sell me another territory.
Yeah. After you sold it, had a success. You had a successful. Yeah. Casey had a successful sell. You were done. And
I'm like, no. What do you think this is a project of mine? Like, I want to see how many times I can do that.
See, if I can flip it for you, I mean, let me make you more money. I mean,
yeah.
I worked on both sides of the franchise not as the actual franchisee, but I worked for a franchisee, and then I worked on the franchisor side of things. 100%. The only thing they want to do is fucking sell franchises.
Yep, they're not looking to sell junk removal. Yeah, they're not looking to sell junk removal. They're looking to sell franchises.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, with respect to time, we're all over the place. Let's go for another couple hours. Let's put a pin in this thing.
When's your summit, Donnie?
So Badass Business Summit, September 20th through the 23rd. Here in Fort Worth, Texas. I'll have 150 CEOs on deck. I've got Jared Morgan flying in. He did a $500 million exit 2 years ago. Going to talk about truly scaling your business. I got Michael Haynes flying in from Australia to talk about systems and processes. We'll have a CEO panel, sales panel, 2 masterminds, freaking ridiculous networking. And the funniest thing I truly love about my summit is the only summit I know that every Friday night of the summit, we break out and fucking karaoke and have just a damn good time making a fool of ourselves. Because I'm a true believer that as a business owner, if you're not letting your hair down at some point and it's all about the fucking grind, you were going to burn the fuck out. So
when Casey and I were at a junk roll conference last year, this couple of young guys came with like, hey, you want to go to dinner with us? And we're like, yeah, like we like to eat dinner too and fuck off. And they're like, they sat there like we're eating fried chicken and talking shit, and they're like looking at us like, oh, you guys are all business all the time. Like, no. We're foodies, and we watch the game, and we tell fucking burp and fart jokes, like whatever. Like the difference is, as a business owner, you're not looking around wondering who's listening to you, because it doesn't matter. You're going to put yourself out there. And actually, karaoke is great because it's like, it's the one time that the more ridiculous you are, the better it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Like you don't. Again, this is like golfing, right? I'm not a huge golfer. When I do golf, I ain't laying one up. I'm swinging the biggest club.
When there's good singers at karaoke, when they're actually trying, I'm like,
oh yeah, no,
ridiculous.
You get me on the stage for 2.5 minutes, blister in the sun. You're welcome, America. I'm just gonna say it right now. That's what I do. Right. Let me go on like a blister in the sun. There we go. Done. 2.5 minutes later, It's an experience. Let's just say that. All right. You also have that. We also didn't even talk about your networking groups across the country. Tell you what, Donnie is a guy to know. He's one of the few people I actually knew before the podcast. We knew of each other for the while on the LinkedIn's. We're dodging, we were dipping, we were ducking. You can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a Donnie.
Yeah, Casey and I have known each other for a number of years.
And of course, I was like, "Hey, Casey, I talked to this really cool guy, Donnie." He's like, "Yeah, I know Donnie." I was like, "What the fuck?" I'd have chased this guy down to get him on the podcast. Casey's like, "Oh yeah, he'd be a great guest. Yeah, he's awesome." Anyway, so I was going somewhere with that before I started dodging and dipping fucking Donnie's. Oh, you have networking groups all over the place. Donnie, how do people find out about you, your networking groups? We want to plug you. We appreciate the hour of your time. And between the summit and your networking groups, you're doing a lot of good stuff out there. So talk about that briefly for our listeners that are service-based home businesses that want to network better.
Absolutely. So if you want to check out the networking groups, go to successchampionnetworking.com. We're all over North America. And they are growing like fucking wildfire. The summit, badassbusinesssummit.com. If you're trying to figure out how to scale your business, this is the room to be in. And if you are, just looking to level up your game, you really want to totally dial in your business with other business owners that have gotten to the point that they left corporate America, they launched their business, and now they're to the place of, okay, there's got to be a better way to grow this fucking thing. We have the Champions Table Masterminds where we will take 6 months and dial your business to fuck in, give you the systems and processes so you can really grow and blow the doors off the thing, not build a shitty job for yourself, but build a business around the lifestyle you want to live. Because, look, at the end of the day, don't build your business alone. Don't make yourself a fucking island. There's plenty of people out there, whether you're doing my shit, you're hanging out with Andy and Casey and their shit and all the things, man. Get around other business owners that are getting after it so you can ask questions and really build business freedom. And I got to say, Casey, last time I saw your ass, dude, you had a big ass fucking gnarly beard and shit. So you were like a total different person, man.
It was legit. His beard was legit. And then he got pissed. He's like, can't believe you're going to grow it that long. I was like, I thought it looked good. I mean, I wasn't trying to date you or nothing.
I mean, you kind of don't look like Casey right now. I'm just saying.
No, man, I lost about 12 pounds in 10 years when I shaved my beard off.
That's true. A little scruggly. All right, Casey, top takeaways from today's episode with our boy Donnie.
Oh, top takeaway. Honestly, it's just, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And also figure out what you want in life. Like we were saying, it doesn't matter your why. You have to figure out what do you want, what do you truly want in life, and how do you get there. A lot of us have a pride issue. We're in a business that we resent. We may be, too proud to say, hey, this isn't for me. And unfortunately, there's only two ways out of that situation. It's by force, or you suck it up and do it yourself. By force, I promise you that's a longer lasting effect, and it won't just be over quick and easy. It'll suck even longer. It'll be more of a financial hit, more of a pride hit. So for those out there that maybe been questioning, reach out to us if you have any questions. I mean, I just said I closed down a business because I saw the writing on the wall, and I made a responsible decision before I got into debt, before I got into a position that would have put me into resentment mode again. So reach out to us. And then my last takeaway is, Donnie is one of these guys that I've known for a couple of years. We don't talk much, but now it's really starting me think like I'm immediately going to ask him to hook up this week. Like, hey, we got to get lunch or something. I don't know why we haven't been. I mean, obviously we're busy, but reach out, man. Reach out to people. Reach out to these guys and girls out there that are crushing it. Or even if you don't know if they're crushing it, reach out anyways and say, hey, let's grab lunch. Let's catch up. Let's see what we're doing. How can we work together?
Awesome. Donnie, top takeaway from today's conversation.
A lot of it's the last part of what Casey just said is man, your circles, they're everything, man. And I think oftentimes, one of y'all said it earlier that, it's lonely running a business. And, I meant to challenge that statement earlier because it doesn't have to be. And I think the constant reminder for me is, who are you feeding off of? Who's giving you information? Who's giving you input? We talked about it earlier about, you got to check who's actually giving you advice. Are the people that have been through it, or people that are giving advice based on what they know, but they don't actually know the path you're going down and what you've been through. And so it's always a great reminder when you get around a couple of other dudes that seem to be getting after it and actually doing some cool shit in life, and being able to have a non-pissing contest conversation of let's learn off each other, let's feed off each other, let's fucking figure out how to collaborate and grow. Though, I think that's what moves the world forward, especially from a business perspective. So good hanging out with you boys.
No, I really do appreciate the time. It's all about alignment. There's a group I'm part of, and they say it's your business, don't grow it alone, and that is the truth. Right? Don't let pride be the thing that takes away your house or your family or, all those things. It is a grind, and the economy is all over the place, and customers aren't always the best, right? There are things within your business you can control. You decide what you do and what success looks like for you, and then you build your business around it. That's why we do this week in and week out, to bring in the experts like Donnie to show you the way. I encourage everybody, check out the Badass Business Summit. Check out his networking groups. Check out Donnie and Going From Fuck to Focus. There's 4 other books. Check out all the things, learn the things, build the network, change the circle around you, because that is ultimately going to be the definition of the people you're going to emulate and your success based on who you surround yourself with. It is not, or it does not have to be lonely, and that is a choice that only you can make. Appreciate everybody sticking around for another amazing episode of the Trash Talk Business Podcast. We're going to see you next week.